The Senate will come to order. Senator Murphy,
Thank you, Mr. President. I impose a call of the Senate.
the Senate is now under call. Senator Murphy,
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that further proceedings under the roll call be dispensed with, and the Sergeant at Arms be instructed to bring in the absent members.
on that motion, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Members, if you will stand, we're going to pause for a prayer by the chaplain, and today's chaplain is Father Chris Collins. He's from the Church of St. Peter Claver in St. Paul and Vice President of Missions at the University of St. Thomas. Members, as a kind reminder, following the prayer, please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thanks very much. It's a privilege to be here, and it's a gift. I work at two different places, both of which were founded by Archbishop John Ireland back in the 19th century, and he was a man not only of faith, but a man of great vision for the whole of society, for the common good, and it's with that spirit in mind that I invite you to join in this prayer. Loving God, we ask you to turn your gaze upon each one of us. Remind us today as we begin this week of the great gifts you have placed in our lives and in our hearts. And we ask you to stir up great desires to serve the common good for your people, that all might flourish, especially the most vulnerable among us. And we pray all this in your most holy name. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, members. The Secretary will take the roll.
Abler, Anderson, Barr, Bolden, Carlson, Champion, Coleman, Swadzinski, Dames, Dibble, Dornick, Draheim, Drazkowski, Duckworth, Eichhorn, Farnsworth, Fateh, Frentz, Green, Grunhagen, Gustafson, Hoschild, Herr, Hoffman, Housley, Howe, Jasinski, Johnson, Johnson-Stewart, Klein, Coran, Kroon, Kunish, Kupek, Lang, Latz, Liskey, Limmer, Lucero, Mann, Marty, Matthews, May-Quaid, McEwen, Miller, Mitchell, Mohammed, Murphy, Nelson, Umuver-Baton, Pappas, Pa, Port, Pratt, Putnam, Rarick, Rasmussen, Rest, Seeberger, Utke, Weber, Wiesenberg, Westland, Westrom, Wickland, Zhang.
Members, a quorum is present. Members, if you want to follow along, I am reading from the Senate agenda dated Monday, January 27, 2025. We will begin at the fifth order of business, reports of committees. Senator Murphy for a motion to adopt the committee reports.
Mr. President, I move the committee reports be printed in the agenda be adopted.
On the adoption of the committee reports, all in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Members, we will now proceed to the sixth order of business, which is the second reading of Senate bills. The Secretary will read the Senate file numbers.
Senate file number 334.
The Senate file has been given its second reading. Members, we'll now proceed to the eighth order of business, introduction and first reading of Senate bills. The bills listed on today's introduction calendar are given their first reading and referred as indicated, with the following changes. If you will proceed to page number 7. Page number 7, we have Senate file numbers 645 that will be referred to the Committee on State and Local Governments. If you will now proceed to page number 11. Senate File number 684 that will be referred to the Committee on Health and Human Services. And finally, last but certainly not least, if you go to page 13, Senate File number 700 will be referred to the Committee on Health and Human Services. As I mentioned, members, the bills listed on today's introduction calendar are given their first reading and referred as indicated. Members will now proceed to the ninth order of business, which is motions and resolutions. We will adopt the author's motion as one motion. All in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Members, I will now call on Senator Marty for your motion. Senator Marty.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that Senate File 567 be withdrawn from Committee on State and Local Government and re-referred to the Committee on Elections. And, Mr. President, I have talked to the two chairs.
Thank you, Senator Marty. Senator Marty moves that Senate File number 567 be withdrawn from the Committee on State and Local Governments and re-referred to the Committee on Elections. To that motion, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. The Secretary will report Senate Resolution number 5.
Senators Johnson, Murphy, Champion, and Miller introduced Senate Resolution number 5, a Senate resolution recognizing Minnesota Senate employees for their years of dedicated service.
Senator Murphy for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to adopt Senate Resolution number 5.
To the resolution, Senator Murphy.
Mr. President, this is a resolution recognizing Minnesota Senate employees for their years of tremendous dedicated service. I ask for you to vote yes.
Any other discussion on Senate Resolution number 5? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. The Secretary will report Senate Resolution number 6.
Senators Murphy, Johnson, Champion, and Miller introduced Senate Resolution number 6, a Senate resolution recognizing Minnesota Senate employees for their dedicated service.
Senator Murphy for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to adopt Senate Resolution number 6.
Senator Murphy to the resolution.
Senate Resolution number 6 recognizes the successive work for 5 legislative sessions for David Jorgensen. I ask for your support.
Any other discussion on Senate Resolution number 6? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Pursuant to Article 4, Section 7 of the Constitution of the State of Minnesota, I move that Senator Nicole Mitchell be expelled from the Minnesota Senate, effective immediately, and that a vacancy in the office for Senate District 47 be declared.
Senator Rasmussen, thank you so very much. Senator Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move a recess of the Senate for approximately 30 minutes.
On that motion, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The Senate is now in recess until the call of the President. Senator Murphy.
Mr. President, I move that further proceedings under the roll call be dispensed with and the Sergeant at Arms be instructed to bring in the absent members.
On that motion, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Before we went to recess, Senator Rasmussen had put forth a motion pursuant to Article 4, Section 7 of the Constitution of the State of Minnesota. And now I want to give him an opportunity to speak to that motion. Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I would request a roll call on the motion.
Roll call, requested roll call granted. Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I would impose a call of the Senate for the remainder of the motion.
The Senate is already under call. Senator Rasmussen. So it's my understanding that the motion was put forward, and I believe that you lifted it, Senator Murphy. Is that correct? All right. So Senator Rasmussen, the Senate is now under call. And Senator Rasmussen, you want the Senate to be under call for the duration of this motion. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. President.
All right. Senator Rasmussen, to your motion.
Mr. President, I move that further proceedings under the roll call be dispensed with and that the Sergeant at Arms be instructed to bring in the absent members.
On that motion, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. I bring this exceedingly rare motion today because we are facing an unprecedented situation. A member of this body is facing charges for felony burglary. The facts are fairly simple. A little after 4 a.m. on April 22nd, Senator Mitchell's stepmother called the police after stepping on an intruder in her bedroom in the dark of night. Police responded and found Senator Mitchell in the basement of the home, dressed head to toe in black. When confronted by police, Senator Mitchell stated, "I know I did something bad." Senator Mitchell was arrested that morning. Senator Mitchell has refused to offer a compelling explanation for her conduct. Senate Rule 56.1 states, members shall adhere to the highest standard of ethical conduct as embodied in the Minnesota Constitution, state law, and these rules. Felony burglary and terrorizing an elderly family member is a severe violation of this ethical standard and alone warrants expulsion. Beyond her conduct on April 22nd, Senator Mitchell yet again violated the ethical standards of this body by using her privileges as a senator to delay justice. In the 7 months since the legislative session concluded last May, Senator Mitchell's case proceeded with the normal pretrial motions and scheduling conferences, and until January 10th, she never once told the judge that she would demand a delay in her trial due to session commencing. There was ample opportunity for the court to conclude a trial before session started, and even when the judge put the trial on the calendar for today, January 27th, when the trial was supposed to start, she said nothing. She said nothing. At the last possible moment, Senator Mitchell filed a request to delay her trial due to her position as a Minnesota senator. The judge granted that request and has delayed the trial until the conclusion of this session. Senator Mitchell has abused her position in the Senate to force a delay in a trial that would provide closure and justice for a real victim. In addition, Senator Mitchell's continued membership of this body severely limits her constituents' voice at the Capitol. The senator from Woodbury is the only senator in this body who does not serve on Senate committees. She's the only member who does not attend legislative caucus meetings. She has already forfeited her ability to effectively represent her constituents. The people of Senate District 47 deserve a senator who can participate as a full member of this body. We don't need the results of a criminal trial to know Senator Mitchell's conduct fails to meet the standards of ethical behavior that we expect from senators. We shouldn't be complicit in delaying justice for the victim of a crime by allowing Senator Mitchell to use her membership in this body to shield herself from criminal consequences. Mr. President and members, we have the opportunity to take clear action to restore the integrity of the Minnesota Senate and remove the cloud of controversy that has followed since Senator Mitchell's arrest last April. I would ask for your support in the motion to expel Senator Mitchell from the Minnesota Senate. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Friends.
Well, thank you, Mr. President and members. Good to be back. I oppose the Rasmussen motion. Mr. President, members, what do we stand for? What is the rule of law? What is the process? What about this institution? No member of the Senate has ever been expelled short of the resolution of the criminal process. Our Senate Subcommittee on Ethics has met, has heard the case, and has told us, in their capacity as our voice on ethics, they want to hear the result of the criminal case first. And why, members? So they can know the whole story. Criminal defendants are afforded certain rights. We could debate the Constitution some other time, but here it is quite clear. This member of the Senate has not had her day in court, and the Senate Subcommittee on Ethics and the rules under 55 make it quite clear. When the Senate Subcommittee on Ethics says we want to wait for the criminal matter to resolve, we shall do so. And Mr. President, that is the way I ask members to frame this. But, Mr. President, I move that you find this motion out of order. Under Mason's Rule 562, it says quite plainly, adequate notice, formal charges, and a public hearing with the right to cross-examine witnesses have been held to be necessary components of procedural due process that must be afforded to a member prior to expulsion. Mr. President and members, we have a process. It is an honorable one. It has worked. I speak on behalf of every member of the Senate Subcommittee on Ethics to say they are in that position for a reason, because we trust them. And Mr. President, I would ask you to find the Rasmussen motion out of order under Mason's Rule 562. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, members.
Advice, Mr. President.
Senator Friends has raised a point of order pursuant to Mason's 562, paragraph 4, and he wants me to rule the Rasmussen motion out of order. Senator Rasmussen, I am going to hear you briefly, and then I'm not going to take any other advice because there's a process for us to take during this time for us to confer with the other co-presiding officer. Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I appreciate the opportunity to offer advice. And I would offer a few different items for your consideration and for the body's consideration. First, Senator Mitchell was afforded a hearing by the Subcommittee on Ethical Conduct on May 7th, 2024. I think that's a very important note to make. And also, Mr. President, when we look at Masons, I would direct you to both Section 562 and 563, and I'm just going to talk through the relevant portions. In Section 562, Part 5, it talks about how the oath of each individual member of a House and the member's duty under it to act conscientiously for the general good is the only safeguard to the fellow members against an unjust and causeless expulsion. This is the only practical rule that can be adopted as to those unrestricted government powers that are necessary to exercise of government functions and that must be lodged somewhere. It goes on, Mr. President, to talk about how each branch of government is necessarily vested with some power that is beyond the supervision of the other branch, and that this power, if you look at Part 2, when it comes to expulsion, is absolute. And if we continue on to Section 563, Part 3, it says, the overriding need for each House to protect its integrity, which we're trying to do today, through the exercise of the expulsion power, the requirement of a 2/3 vote to expel by itself satisfies procedural due process. I would also point out, Mr. President, in Section 562, Part 3, it states, a House in passing upon the question of expelling a member has the power to adopt any procedure and to change it at any time and without notice. And Mr. President, I would also point you to the Minnesota Constitution. If you look at Article 4, Section 7 of our Constitution, The simple requirement for expelling a member is a 2/3 concurrence. So, Mr. President, to sum up, if Senator Mitchell had her opportunity on May 7th in front of the subcommittee, she actually had an opportunity to have a real criminal trial that would have started today, but she waived that ability. And when you look at Mason's section 562 and 563, it very clearly states it empowers the Minnesota Senate to decide the question of expulsion. It says that that satisfies any due process claim. It says that this power is absolute and that the protection that members are afforded is the conscience of the members and the 2/3 vote threshold. I'd ask that you find Senator Frentz's point of order not well taken.
Thank you, Senator Rasmussen. I'm going to take it under advisement. Please give us a minute. Jeremy, will you join us? Senator Miller, will you join us? I'm sorry. Members, thank you for your patience. We still have to go to the next step in our agreement in order to try to find common ground or a decision. So with that being stated, we'd ask you all to remain in the chambers, and I'm now requesting Senator Johnson and Senator Murphy to join Senator Miller and myself and Secretary Bodden in the President's office. I will entertain a motion. They said I should probably best for us to take a recess. A motion for a recess?
Mr. President, I move for a brief recess.
On that motion, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. The Senate is now in recess for to the calling or at the calling of the President. So if we can gather in the office, please. The Senate will come to order. Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I impose a call of the Senate.
The Senate is now under call. Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that further proceedings under the roll call be dispensed with and the Sergeant at Arms be instructed to bring in the absent members.
On that motion, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Members, as you know, before going into recess, there was a point of order that was raised by Senator Friends, and as you know, based on our agreement, if Senator Miller and I, who, as being co-presiding officers, do not agree, then we will go into consultation with our leaders. After consulting with all the necessary parties, I find that the Friends motion is well taken.
Mr. President?
I'm sorry. Point of order is well taken. Senator
Mr. President,
Rasmussen.
I appeal the ruling of the President and request a roll call.
Senator
to offer advice to the body.
Rasmussen appeals the ruling of the President, and as you know, that appeal is
President.
not debatable.
Mr. President?
President, it is debatable.
I'm sorry. It is debatable. Sorry. Senator Rasmussen, you want me to go to a couple others and then end up with you?
Yes, Mr. President.
All right.
And Mr. President, I would also request that for this vote that the Senate is under call.
The Senate is under call. Senator Mitchell. Oh, I'm sorry. Not you. Okay, sorry. I saw something over there. Senator Kroon.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for advice to the body. Article 4, Section 7 of the Minnesota Constitution allows each legislative body to punish its members for disorderly behavior and expel a member with concurrence of 2/3 of its members. This right is absolute. It's in the Constitution. It doesn't say as prescribed by law. It doesn't say as prescribed by rule. It's absolute. Masons 562, Part 3 says a House, in passing upon the question of expelling a member, has the power to adopt any procedure and to change it at any time and without notice. Mr. President, our temporary rules, yes, it has an ethics process. It does not apply to expulsion. We clearly have the right to establish expulsion rules. We did not do it. Why? Because the right is absolute under the Constitution. Mr. President, even if Masons does speak to due process under an expulsion, and that's Section 562, Part 4, and even if you think, anybody in this body thinks that that applies as some sort of test to see if due process has been done in this case, it has been unquestionably met. That provision requires adequate notice, formal charges in a public hearing with the right to cross-examine witnesses. And Mr. President, the ethics complaint in this matter was filed nearly a year ago. Clearly stated purpose was to expel Senator Mitchell. The charges in the complaint were clearly stated. Senator Mitchell had adequate notice of the hearing. Senator Mitchell had an opportunity to be heard and to cross-examine witnesses. Senator Mitchell did, in fact, cross-examine witnesses through her lawyer. Beyond the shadow of a doubt, Senator Mitchell has had the due process necessary to expel her from the Minnesota Senate. There is no requirement in the Constitution, in statute, in Masons, or in case law even suggesting that this institution must wait until her criminal proceedings are fully adjudicated before we may exercise our constitutional authority to discipline our own members, including expulsion. Yet, Senate Democrats have attempted time and time again, both within this chamber and outside of this chamber, to suggest that such a requirement exists. It does not. This body may act on its constitutional authority in accordance with its own due process standards, which have clearly been met in this case. Mr. President, Senator Mitchell has been afforded due process. Last year, Mr. President, Senate Democrats claimed they protected Senator Mitchell by claiming that expulsion was not warranted because she had not yet had her day in court. Now here we are, nearly a year later, and Senator Mitchell has had her opportunity for her day in court. In fact, her day in court was today, the day her trial was scheduled to begin. And what did she do with her opportunity for her day in court? She used her status as a state senator to delay her day in court, to delay her court trial and push it off past yet another legislative session. So last year, in the name of due process, Senator Mitchell used her pending criminal proceedings as an excuse to delay her expulsion from the Minnesota Senate. And now this year, Senator Mitchell is using her status as a member of the Minnesota Senate to delay her criminal proceedings. Mr. President, that is not due process. That is an abuse of process. She's playing it both ways. She's using her status as a senator to delay her criminal proceedings and then turning right around and using her delay in the criminal proceedings to stay getting expelled from this institution, the Minnesota Senate. Senator Mitchell is making a mockery of the Minnesota Senate, and the time is now for us to stop playing along and finally uphold the reputation of the Minnesota Senate and do the right thing, not only for this institution, but for the people of Minnesota, expelling Senator Mitchell today and reversing the ruling of the president. Thank you.
Senator Westrom.
Mr. President, I rise to a parliamentary inquiry.
Please state your inquiry.
Mr. President, a few inquiries just so you know, but first of all, is Senator Mitchell on the roll present today and voting?
Senator Westrom, Senator Mitchell is in the chamber, and she's here under call, just like all other senators.
Okay, Mr. President, second parliamentary inquiry.
Please state your inquiry.
Mr. President, has Senator Mitchell asked to be recused from this vote or any vote dealing with discipline?
Senator Westrom, I believe that you know the answer to that. I haven't heard, and that would be something that the body would have to vote on if someone asked to be recused.
Okay, so
Senator Westrom.
So, Mr. President, just as the President of the Senate, you have not had the request for recusal. Parliamentary inquiry.
It has not been, one has not been put forward to me or this body, because in fact what would happen is a person would have to rise and ask to be excused, and we as a body would vote on that. Senator Westrom.
And final parliamentary inquiry, Mr. President. Under Senate Rules 53 or 56.3, would a member need to recuse themselves from a vote that deals with their discipline on behalf of the Senate that brings the Senate into disrepute or dishonor or betrays the public trust?
Senator Westrom, to your question, that we have a self-enforcing notion as it pertains to whether a person is going to vote or if they believe that their conduct violates any rule or policy. Before I go to Senator Rasmussen, I want to make sure that there's no one else that wants to speak, because I did promise him that he would be the last voice that we would hear before we vote. Did you want to say something, Senator Friends? Because he's going to be the last person. All right. Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I would ask members to overrule this partisan ruling. And, Mr. President, I think it's important when we look at our Constitution and our rules and Masons for us to just simply read the language. Read the language in Masons. For example, in Section 563, Part 3, Masons states, the overriding need for each house to protect its integrity through the exercise of the expulsion power, the requirement for a 2/3 vote to expel by itself satisfies procedural due process. It's very clear. That's why in our Constitution, in Article 4, Section 7, it requires a 2/3 vote of this chamber to expel a member. That is the protection. That is the protection. And it's very clear, Mr. President, in Masons, that this power is absolute. If we look at Section 562, Part 2, it says in all other aspects, referring to the 2/3 vote, this power is absolute. And it goes on in Part 5 to say that the only protection against abuse is the conscience of the individuals with whom this power is vested. Mr. President, if members don't think Senator Mitchell should be expelled, they can vote no on her expulsion. They can stand up and debate that. They can say why they don't want to. But, Mr. President, I'm concerned today that we perhaps have individuals who don't want to vote on that. And so, Mr. President, I would request and ask members to vote red, to appeal the ruling of the President, so that we can continue to talk about this issue and whether or not she should be serving in the Minnesota Senate.
Thank you, Senator Rasmussen. Members, just a reminder that a green vote upholds the ruling of the President, a red vote goes against the ruling of the President. And remember, this is a procedural issue, and whether the Friends motion, point of order, I keep saying motion, point of order is well taken. Members, please vote. The Secretary will take the roll. All members having voted who desires to vote, the secretary will close the roll. There being 33 ayes and 33 nays, the decision of the president is upheld. Anything else before we go to the 13th order of business? Members, we are now on the 13th order of business, which is announcements of Senate interest. Any excuses for the day? Let me take the excuses. There are no excuses. Senator Abler.
Thank you, Mr. President. On your desk, you'll see a copy of an op-ed that I had the privilege of getting published today, talking about 2011 when we faced a similar budget deficit. There'll be a lot of talk about that. It was very difficult. I think the hill that we're on this year is even higher, but that might be beneficial to you as you look at what we did in the past, and I appreciate your attention to that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any other announcements of Senate interest? Senator Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. President. Announcement for the Energy Committee. Senator Frentz and I have spoken as co-chairs. The committee meeting today will be canceled with the lateness of the session here. The full agenda will be moved to Wednesday, where the same agenda will be in effect, and the GOP will hold the gavel for that meeting. Thank you.
Senator Draheim.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ditto for the Jobs Committee. I just conferred with the President. We're going to postpone the hearing that was supposed to be held today till Wednesday. So no Jobs Committee today. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Draheim. Senator Limmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, or Mr. President. As the co-chair, I announce that the Judiciary Committee will be meeting immediately after Senate session today.
Senator Swazinski.
Ed Policy will be meeting in 6 minutes for probably about 45.
Senator Klein. I see you standing. Thank you, Senator Klein. I just want to make sure I did not ignore you. Senator Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to remind people that the Human Services Committee will be meeting today.
Any other announcements of Senate interest? Seeing none, Senator Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate do now adjourn until Thursday, January 30th at 11 a.m.
On that motion, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. The Senate is now adjourned until Thursday.